Podcast Nerdly Podcast presents The Tome Travelers.
Hi, and welcome back for another special release between Tome Travelers from Passion Nerdly and Go Fund This from Nerds Domain Podcasts. Today's special guest is James Robert Crews Wylder, who is a member of our podcasting network, Southgate Media Group, and also a game creator in his own right. So, James, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about your upcoming release.
Yeah, thank you for bringing me on. It's great to be here, as they always say.
One of the first things with any game creator we feature is that we point out how almost all of them were gamers before. So what got you into gaming?
So I've been doing role-playing games for my whole life, basically. I started playing them when I was just a little kid. My first one was actually the Star Wars D6 system from West End Games. First time I ever played it, I believe I played a TIE pilot. Because I was with a whole bunch of older kids and they didn't want to let me actually make a character at that point. So I think I got killed by the heroes at that point. But I wasn't deterred, and it kind of started a big lifelong passion that obviously it's still going since I'm trying to make these now.
As a game creator now and a writer before, I think it is safe to say this is not your first project. In fact, you've been involved in a few different projects. What has been your most personally satisfying project to date before this one?
Oh man, it's like trying to choose between my babies there. I'm really proud of my first anthology I edited, 10,000 Dawn's Poor Man's Iliad. It was actually a pretty rough road getting that book out, but I'm really satisfied, with the end result of it. It's 800 pages long with 44 stories by a ton of great authors, including people who, wrote for Star Wars Tales comics, Doctor Who novels, the web series Marble Hornets, and it was a lot of fun to just put it all together and see those stories all take shape. I also really enjoyed writing my first sci-fi novel, 10,000 Dawns. That was a lot of fun. Serializing it, getting to see people's responses as the chapters went out, and little twist endings and cliffhangers and that sort of thing. And also my first book of poetry, which was the first book I ever had out, Cascade. Poetry has always been one of my big loves with writing. And something I really hope I get to return to soon. So, yeah, outside of RPGs, I have worked on a lot of things. I've written, outside of the books I worked on for GoblinPunk, 10 other books now, just by me, not counting books I just had like a story in or an essay in or that kind of thing. So, yeah, I've been busy.
So moving from fiction into writing for RPGs can require developing a lot of different skills. What has been the most interesting challenge or lesson learned?
I actually didn't find it too big of a challenge between the two because I've always kind of intertwined them. When I was in college, I kind of test ran some of the ideas for my sci-fi series 10,000 Dawns in the role-playing game that I was running in college. And they didn't transfer directly, one-to-one to when I adapted them into fiction, but it did give me a good sense of, what kind of things were compelling to people, and doing that kind of thing has always been really fun, playing around with the way you can intertwine fiction and role-playing games. I've always liked writing stories about my role-playing characters, and doing role-playing things based on things I wanted to write. But I think a good thing, which I guess it wasn't a lesson because it kind of came intuitively to me in this area, was just that adaptations between role-playing games and fiction can't always be one-to-one things. So, for example, with GoblinPunk, we have a role-playing module, and we also have a short story anthology. And the short story anthology features an adaptation of the adventure, which I wrote. And you obviously have a lot of choices that the players get. And also choices that the game master gets to make when running the adventure. And you can't do everything if you're writing it out as a story. It needs to have a through line. There needs to be a reason these characters are specifically doing things and going to places. And, one thing that I did learn while working on that was I just had to, treat it like it was a group of players making these decisions, but also make sure it was something satisfying to readers. And so I couldn't do all the little bits of the adventure that I might want to, because if I did, then it would just be a big jumbled mess. And so that was a really interesting experience doing those two things. But I've actually worked on a couple failed RPG projects. Shotgun Angel Games, we did a Kickstarter for a role-playing game that we really wanted to make a few years ago, and it did not pan out. And that led to us taking some time to stop and think about what we really needed and wanted to do, and that's kind of how GoblinPunk got born.
So tell us a little about the project and Shotgun Angel Games, and your first module, GoblinPunk.
Yeah, so Shotgun Angel Games is a company that was put together by myself, Corey Roth, Damon Null, and a few other people who've since left the company, but it's kind of always been the core three of us, and we were all friends growing up, making game sessions on the weekends together, and I've always loved writing things, and we came together to try to make role-playing games because we've just loved playing them. And as I talked about a little bit before, we tried to make an earlier RPG game. It was one of those kind of systems that's meant to let you do anything you want with it. It was a little too broad, we found out. People kind of wanted something a little more specific, because there's actually a lot of systems like that that are meant to just let you do anything in a big sandbox. And we're still going to try to put it out at some point, because we worked really hard on it. But we kind of stopped, took a step back, and said, all right, how about we make an adventure module? And we started, bashing ideas back and forth, and we thought it would be really cool if we could take these, mischievous goblins and put them in with steampunk stuff. Just the aesthetics of steampunk and all the things you can do with it, all those gizmos and gadgets, the kind of wonderfulness of being able to have these big steam-powered airships in an otherwise kind of, just fantasy setting. It still fits together, because you can still kind of suspend your disbelief that in this fantasy world somebody might build a steam-powered thing a little easier than if they actually just made modern, realistic technology, which is a little strange, and yet it does work. It blends together. And so we started making this module. Corey did the art. Damon wrote the biggest chunk of the adventure. I wrote, fiction that goes along with it, and we all, contributed little bits to the writing of the adventure. But, Damon was the guy who wrote the main draft of it, and then we all chipped in little bits. And, it was just a lot of fun getting to make it. And hopefully we'll get to make more from here if this is a success. Because getting to tell stories and create an environment for other people to tell stories, it's wonderful.
I always love to ask this about creators with their creations. If you could be anyone or anything within the world of your game, who or what would you be?
Who would I be? Well, it's certainly, as much as the goblins in this adventure are really fun, I don't think I would want to be one of them, because your characters would be coming for me, and I've seen how people make their D&D Pathfinder characters, so I'd probably get clobbered by the end of this. I guess if I was going to be anyone within it, okay, so I mentioned there's that the anthology of stories that goes along with it. I'd like to be one of the characters that I wrote for that anthology. I'd like to be Trezana, who is this bard who kind of just works as a assistant to the city government in the area, who kind of gets pulled along into this adventure. If I was in the worlds of D&D or Pathfinder, I'd probably be a bard. I'm a storyteller. Big surprise because I've written a bunch of books. But I'd probably like to be her, get swept up in this venture, get all these steampunk gadgets to play with, and also have a nice salary job to go back to just in case.
Has there been any specific source of inspiration for your module?
At least for me personally, I was really inspired by some of the steampunk movies I've really loved. Howl's Moving Castle is a big one. I love Howl's Moving Castle. Steam Boy. Also things like the Paizo's Pathfinder Goblins comics. Those are fantastic and they're really funny. As well as, kind of the obvious things, the scenes with the goblins in The Hobbit, which are kind of like the definitive goblins. They're malicious, but they're also kind of funny, and, merging all that stuff together, it's good times.
Lastly, of course, the shameless plug point I always do. So, when are you expecting to release this game, and is there a place that fans could go and look at this product or any of your other works?
So the game's already out. You can find it on Drive-Thru RPG and Amazon.com. Just search for GoblinPunk. It's right there, and you can find the gaming module on both sites, and you can find the short story anthology just on Amazon. And you can get it there in print or for Kindle, and Drive-Thru RPG has it digitally, Amazon has it in print, the adventure, so go take a look, go find it! You can also find all my other books just on Amazon if you're curious about them. 10,000 Dawns is my big sci-fi series, so you can check that out there, and I hope you do, because the new anthology has some really amazing stuff in it, and it's a good place to hop on if you haven't ever tried the series before.
Well, James, thank you so much for joining us today on the show, and we really hope that you'll go and check out his website and check out his podcast that he's involved with from Southgate Media Group.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been a good time, so peace out and take care.
This podcast is produced by Passion Nerdly in association with the Nerds Domain and our parent network, the Southgate Media Group. This podcast could not exist without their support or from support by Patreons like you. For more information on how you can get involved, visit PassionNerdly.com.
This has been a production of the Southgate Media Group. For more podcasts like this one, head over to SouthgateMediaGroup.com.
Passion Nerdly Podcast presents The Tome Travelers.